Tansei, welcome to Métis Minute, your source for all things Métis news in Region 7. Today is a very special episode. We wanted to bring you something to help spread some love this Valentine's Day, which is why we're going to be talking about the latest production put on by Talk is Free Theatre. First, Métis Man of Odessa. As some of you may know, theater took a big financial hit during the pandemic due to COVID restrictions and the lockdown. But I am here to tell you that theater in Barrie is alive and well. If you haven't been back to the theater, we urge you to see First Métis Man of Odessa. It is set during the backdrop of the pandemic and the Russian invasion of the Ukraine. The show was co-created by Cree Métis playwright Matthew Mackenzie and his Ukrainian wife, Maria Homatova. It's a love story about how they met and how their love was able to withstand borders during war and a global pandemic. I sat down with artistic director of Talk is Free Theatre, Michael Torontow, to discuss why they chose to share this Métis story in particular, and why Talk is Free Theatre is a vital service to people seeking theater in Simcoe County. We also discuss how they've been able to recover from the pandemic. First of all, I want to say as a Métis person, I am excited to go see this play. I'm going to be seeing it opening night. But yeah, it's great to have that representation, especially for the Métis people in the community. But if you wanted to maybe give a little summary without, maybe giving too much away, but what the plot of First Métis Man of Odessa is.
Sure. Well, the good thing about this is that it's really at its heart, and I can talk about this later, but it is a love story. So while I won't give any very specific details about what happens, it really is basically about the playwright, Matthew Mackenzie, who's a Métis man who lives in Alberta, who went to Kyiv in 2018 to workshop a play. And he had hired some actors, Ukrainian actors who could also speak English, to be a part of this workshop. And they were only together for a very short time. But then he ended up developing an email relationship with this one particular actress, Maria Homutova. And over the course of that year, their romance flourished. And he went back over to Ukraine to see her again. There were some surprises. And this is out there, so it's a little bit of a spoiler, but if you wanted to find this, you could, that they found out that they were expecting. And then as their romance blossomed and their family unexpectedly but happily blossomed, not only did a pandemic happen, but also the breakout of war happened in the Ukraine. Mm-hmm. So basically, that First Métis Man of Odessa is an accounting of how their love has gone and how it came together and how it has been faced with all of these challenges, but how they're still in love.
No, that's great. And yeah, maybe if you want to talk about what went behind maybe Talk is Free Theatre choosing this production to put on.
Sure. Well, it is quite simply part of our mandate to make sure that we have as much diversity and inclusion within our well, not just the artists that we work with, but also with the kind of programming that we put out. Because of course, the kind of theater is meant to be a reflection of humanity, and the best way, especially in on this land that we do refer to as Canada, there is such a massive amount of different cultures that we need to represent. And so by programming First Métis Men of Odessa, it is just one of our steps, tiny steps, but important steps towards reconciliation, to be able to celebrate Indigenous voices whenever we can, and to do so in Barrie is very important, as it is anywhere, really.
Yeah, and like I was mentioning, as like a Métis person, because often sometimes it's like a pan-Indigenous like story that people put on, but to like specifically choose like to work with a Métis artist and tell a Métis story is a bit refreshing, because I feel like sometimes Métis stories aren't heard as much. It's like First Nations or Inuit.
Right.
So yeah, thank you for for putting that on. Um, yeah, so how will audiences in Simcoe County who aren't Métis, or it also takes place in Ukraine, so who aren't Métis or Ukrainian, be able to relate to the themes that are going on in this play?
Well, as I was mentioning before, because the play really is fundamentally about love, it's about the love between two people and the kind of challenges they face. And especially with the fact that these are actually real people. They're real people, and as we'll talk about probably a little bit later, is Matthew himself. He's a playwright first and foremost. He's not really an actor. So
Mm.
the way that he's depicted on stage even becomes that much. Sometimes when you get real people on stage versus actors, it becomes that much more relatable. So you really get to partake in their love story and hopefully find ways that you can relate to it in your own life. But also there's a lot to learn. I mean, just as with what theater is meant to do is, again, as I said before, a reflection of society. It's a chance to get to hear about the things that they went through, and the ways that you might not have known that the pandemic might have affected this group of people, or the breakout of war would have affected, or how colonialism is not just something that we talk about in North America, that is something that is present in Ukraine as well, with Russia breathing down
Yeah.
Ukraine's back, you know. So there are different ways that people will definitely be able to relate to this, whether you're Métis or Ukrainian or not.
I think too that it kind of seems like it stands the test of time. Maybe society's changing now, but as we see, like another war is broken out, and I think unfortunately this story has become even more relatable now to other cultures as well. So
Well, that's just it. Yeah, I mean, and I mean, I don't want to be politicize anything at all, because I don't want to take positions that really necessary. Because I also don't feel, to be honest, that I know enough about really anything to really um, want to take a side. But you're absolutely right, is that since the war in Ukraine broke out, and it's now almost 2 years later after Russia's first invasion, then we've also got what's going on in Israel and in Yemen and all sorts of other places in the world that unfortunately we don't even hear about.
hmm.
So it's but people who go to see the play might know about it, and they can relate to it in, unfortunately, horrifying ways. I hope they don't, but it is a reality that they can also identify with.
Yeah, and yeah, it's set, like you said, set against the backdrop of the pandemic as well. And we all experienced that universal trauma together, no matter, I
Yes.
don't think anyone escaped that. Uh,
No.
yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, so how does it make these issues more digestible for the audience using the comedy? Because it can be sometimes pretty heavy stuff, like you said, like the war, the pandemic. Some people had a tough time getting through that. How does it, yeah, make it digestible for the audience?
I think it's really important when you are a creator of theater or a film or anything that's got a really, really heavy set of topics that it deals with, that you do inject some comedy in there just to give yourself a break. But also sometimes, due to the human nature, even sometimes we actually laugh at things that aren't even funny sometimes. And that sort of, if you are given the chance to breathing for a second, go, oh, that wasn't funny, but I actually can, it gives me a second to look at it
Mm.
and really think about how I feel about it. But with this play in particular, uh, as I was saying before about Matthew in particular, I mean, Maria is an award-winning actress from Ukraine, whereas opposite Matthew, who kind of isn't, and that in itself creates its own comedy, in how sometimes she will go on this beautiful, gorgeous poetic speech, and then he will respond in a way that is just very short and terse and just sort of like the what you might be thinking anyway, and it makes it all relatable and digestible. And they just, through the writing and the performance, they do a great job of being able to balance the two so that you're able to not sit there and feel like you're being bombarded with this really horrible situation for the duration of the play.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it's going to be great to watch. Yeah, just 'cause through the comedy, I write comedy too myself, so I
Mhm.
know that. Yeah, like sometimes you just have to laugh in order to talk about it. So
It's true. It's true.
yeah, but yeah, so through the pandemic, theater was particularly hit hard. Do you have any updates on maybe how, just in general, the theater industry is doing, or how Talk is Free Theater has been able to sort of bounce back since the lockdown?
Yeah. It is very true that live performance is definitely an industry that has been the hardest hit because we were the last ones to really open, when things were starting to open up again. And, there's even talk now in early 2024, less so, but are we still really all the way open? Like, we still do face in rehearsal halls. We have actors, the performers who are just don't come in because they feel sick. So because of the way that the world has responded to the pandemic, we don't take any chances anymore. So it becomes, in our day-to-day operations, it still is very present. And for audiences as well, it's making it so it can be difficult for people to maybe, performances get canceled. And I worry sometimes that audiences don't always, they might have had a little bit less trust in whether or not we're gonna, I have tickets, but is there gonna be a show?
Hmm.
Um, but it's getting much, much better. It's definitely getting better. Audiences are coming back, and theater companies are being able to feel a little bit more secure about how things are going. With Talk is Free Theater in particular, I'm really proud of how we responded, and it's mostly driven by our artistic producer, Arkady Spivak, who he's extremely creative at being able to find ways of engaging artists and creative ways of literally just finding stuff to do. And so over the course of the pandemic, we were doing productions. First, many people were, but we were doing productions online, like just readings of plays just for ourselves, that really helped us just keep our craft up. And then slowly that turned into online presentations of plays. And then that morphed into outdoor presentations of things in such a wide variety of different places, backyards, rooftops in Barrie. It was strange at times, but it was really great, and it felt good to be able to get out there and do that. We also engaged in doing things that we call service projects, which are a variety of different kind of, whether it be mental health or mentorship programs that were for the benefit of artists. But we also developed some new technology that helps the way that we interact with audiences, which is really great. All of this put together sort of taught us about how resilient we are as a theater company, and how and it also forced us to, just as I mentioned before about Arkady, to really get together and collectively become a really great creative collective of people. So that now, if you follow Talk is Free Theater at all, that you'll see that we don't just do our productions in theaters. We do our productions, we do them immersively in weird places around the city, or we've done productions in parks, or you'll see some coming up that it's a secret location, but we're doing it in a very special location for our play that's coming up after First Métis Man. We feel very strong now because it's sort of like it's like, I don't mean to be gross, but we get a cut, and then sometimes the scar that forms over it gives you thicker skin, and we're coming out of this stronger, fortified in a way that we can sort of almost face anything.
Yeah, it seems like the pandemic and a lot of artistic people, it forced you to be creative with how you're delivering your content. And of course, a lot of people went into like podcasting and things like that, just finding any way you could be creative to fill that
Yes.
void in your life.
Mhm.
Yeah. But yeah, so why are, like you said, you've been finding different ways to bring these stories to people. And I think during the pandemic, we found that people need to be entertained. Like people were
Mhm.
consuming and streaming things nonstop. So why is it important for theater companies like Talk is Free Theater to bring theater to like communities like Barrie and celebrate different cultures and bring these shows out?
Mhm. Great question. Barrie is close to Toronto, but it's still far enough away from Toronto that uh, that you either have people who want to seek out theater or people who might just go if it's there.
Mhm.
And I think that, and even though when I reference Toronto, I mean, Toronto's got its own spirit, its own thing. But Barrie has its own thing,
Mhm.
and sort of being referring to Barrie as the gateway to the north. We of course you've got certain theaters and even further north and in Aurelia and all around, but we like to try to think sometimes of Barrie as being a cultural hub of the region, and it's got its own um, just unique qualities, and there is an artistic uh, what am I trying to say? There's an artistic community, a vibrant artistic community that we want to be a part of and to sustain, so that people don't have to go. That we want to be able to bring top-notch theater with talent from across. We do bring the top-notch talent from
Yeah.
across the country to the city to be able to provide um, uh, residents and tourists the opportunity to see great theater at home without having to go outside to Toronto or anywhere further, because Barrie deserves it. Barrie is it. Theater by the Bay is great at bringing very, very local stories, and that is just a part of the reflection of the exact culture from around the area. And we also maybe sort of balance that out by trying to bring local stories, but also bringing local people, and also bringing just such a wide variety of different kinds of theater to the area, so that people can be proud of what the Barrie arts community has to offer.
It's always nice to keep it accessible too, where it's like when you think of communities, it's like not forcing them to come to you, but like you going to them. So to have a theater company here in the city that people can just, like you said, some people just go like, oh, I want to see a show. And now I don't have to travel like an hour and a
Right?
half, right? Stuck in traffic. Like I can go in my own home and my own backyard and go see something and not have to worry.
That's right. Sometimes literally in your own backyard, because we do that.
Yeah. I'll look out to see where you're popping up in your mystery locations.
Yes, yes. It was the tree in my backyard.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So where can people get tickets and when is the first Métis Man of Odessa on?
First Métis Man of Odessa runs from February 22nd to March 2nd at Five Points Theater at 1 Dunlop Street West in Barrie. You can go to our website, which is www.tift, that's TIFT.ca, or you can call 705-792-1949.
All right. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Merci for watching, everyone. We hope you're able to go out and catch this play to support theater in Simcoe County and celebrate diverse stories. If the pandemic has taught us anything, it's that entertainment is vital to our community and our survival as human beings. Supporting your local theater company helps keep them alive so they can bring art and entertainment to areas and people that may face barriers to experiencing these amazing stories. You can catch First Man of Odessa at the Five Points Theater in downtown Barrie from February 22nd to March 2nd. Merci for watching, and we'll catch you down the river.